All right, guys, so this is going to be lesson 1.1. Okay, you can take your notes on a spare piece of notebook paper, or if you want to put it in a spiral to keep up with all of them, that's fine. After we go over the notes, then you'll have an assignment posted in Google Classroom, and all you have to do are the odds. So a couple of definitions that you need right away is you need to know that domain, this is just the set of all input, which means independent, and or x values of a relation or function. The range is the set of all output, which is the dependent. These are the y values of a set. Oh, sorry, not of a set, of a relation or function. Okay, my next vocab word is going to be continuous. Okay, a continuous graph, and I'm going to abbreviate now. Anytime I need to use domain, I'm going to put a capital D, and anytime I need to use range, I'm going to put a capital R. This is the domain and range values are unbroken over a part of a graph. I like to teach it when I'm teaching freshmen. Continuous means it's connected. Okay, now discrete, this is domain and range values are not connected. Ooh, I cannot spell. Okay, what I like to describe as discrete is dots. So continuous starts with a C, connected. Discrete starts with a D, dots. Okay, you always must write domain and range from least to greatest, which means that you need to go domain left to right and greatest bottom to top. Okay, one more note that you need to take is we use parentheses to indicate less than or greater than or infinities, because these are what we call exclusive. It doesn't necessarily include it all. And then we use square brackets to indicate less than or equal to or greater than or equal to, because these are inclusive. Yes, inclusive. Because it does include those numbers. Okay, so now we are going to just do 3 examples. You are going to have to draw your own graph. So if you, I will put limits and everything on it for you. So I'm going to do 1 example on the front, then we'll move to the back. Okay, my graph. So this is going to be example 1. I'm going to draw me a graph right here. Okay, we're going to do an absolute value graph, which is a V. I'm going to put arrows on it to indicate that it is continuing on in both directions. Okay, one thing that you do need to know is that this down here reaches -1. Okay, so there's the graph that you need. We have to do 5 parts, and you're going to do the exact same thing on your homework, but on your homework, you're just going to do it on a sheet of notebook paper and write it kind of how I'm doing it. The first thing that I need to know, so this is going to be like number 1, part 1. The first blank you're going to fill in is this graph continuous or discrete? Well, this is continuous because this graph goes forever left and right. Okay, there are 4 more parts to this. You are going to have to give me a verbal description. You're going to have to give me an inequality description, a set notation, and an interval notation. But I'm going to start with verbal. We're going to go domain first. Domain goes forever to the left, because this arrow tells me it keeps going, and forever to the right. So my domain, verbally means you have to write it out, is all real numbers. Now for range, I'm going to pull this back over here a little bit. This does not go down forever. It stops at -1, but it does go up forever. So this is, again, all real numbers. And we're going to put greater than or equal to -1. Now, you don't have to spell out numbers, but you do have to spell out your symbol and everything on verbal. Okay, so that's part 1, verbal. Got verbal. Okay, the second part is going to be our inequality notation. Okay, so inequality notation, here we go. This one's the easy one. This is what you did as freshmen or as Algebra 1 students whenever you took it. Okay, so domain was all real numbers. The inequality notation is just the symbol for all real numbers. Range, slight change. We don't have all real numbers because they put a limit on it. They said greater than or equal to -1. Since we're talking about range, range is y. We put a greater than or equal to and then a -1. And that is our inequality notation. Okay, for set notation, and I'm just not writing the notation, guys. This is just set notation. Okay, this is the most complicated to write. You will see it, so you need to know it. But if this is the way you don't like, you don't always have to do this. For domain and for range. Okay, you're going to start with a squiggle bracket. Domain is X, and then you draw a bar. Okay, then you have to repeat the X. Now here comes a symbol you may not have seen before. I don't really know how to describe it except do like a capital C and then make an E. Okay, since domain has all real numbers, you just pull your inequality notation down. All real numbers, close your squiggle bracket. This is read as X such as. X includes the set of all real numbers. So this little CE thing stands for includes the set of. For range, we do the same thing. Set notation, we draw our bracket, we put Y such as Y includes the set of, so that little C with E, and we do continue with all real numbers, but we put a comma this time because it's Y such as Y includes a set of all real numbers where, and then we just pull down our inequality notation. Y is greater than or equal to -1. And that's all you have to do. So you always include this set of all real numbers, and then if it had a limit, you bring it down. Okay, for our last type, this is what we're going to achieve. This is what we want all the time. This is the way Algebra 2 starts to move. We want interval notation. Okay, interval notation to me is the easiest. That's where these notes right here come into play, parentheses and brackets. Okay, so since my domain is all real numbers, so I'm going to write domain and then range. Okay, my domain is all real numbers. That means I have a parentheses because it goes -infinity to infinity with a parentheses. So if we use infinity symbols, then that means parentheses. All real numbers will always have parentheses. Now, if you have all real numbers with a limit, then you may not have the infinity symbol. So when I move to range, it says all real numbers greater than or equal to -1. So -1 is the lowest spot. So since that's the lowest, we start with -1. And since that says greater than or equal to, on equal to's, we do a bracket. So I'm going to do a square bracket, -1, comma, and then it continues going up forever. So we put infinity parentheses, and that is our interval notation. Again, interval is where we're trying to head more towards. You can still use verbal, inequality, and set on this first quiz. You'll see all of that, but that just gives you an idea of the 4 types that you are going to have to do today. So I'm going to flip on over, and I'm going to go to example 2. Okay, I'm going to draw me my graph. This is X, this is Y. Okay. Okay, you're going to have a graph that looks like that. There's 7 dots in total. I will go ahead and label them for you. This starts to get a little sloppy, so just bear with me. This one's -6, -6. This one is -4, -5. This one is -2, -4. This one is 0, -3. This one is 2, -2. This one is 4, -1. And this last one is 6, 0. Okay, now that I have my dots labeled, what we're going to do is we're going to first answer the questions. Is it continuous or is it discrete? Since this consists of dots, this is a discrete graph. Okay, so for my verbal, I'm just going to put a V this time, verbal. This is a little bit different this time because it doesn't include everything. So I can't say all real numbers because all real numbers means everything in between. So we're going to change this up and say all, and for, oh, I forgot my D for domain. So D, domain. Okay, for domain, we have -6, -4, -2, 0, 2, 4, 6. We're going to say all even integers. And we say integers because integers are positive and negative whole numbers. So all even integers between and including -6 and 6, because it goes all the way from -6 up to +6 on the domain, the X value. Okay, for range, same thing, but this time I don't have to do even because I go -6, -5, -4, -3, -2, -1, and 0. We're going to go all integers between and including -6 and 0. Okay, so that was verbal. Next, we're going to do our integer. No, not our, our inequality. And I'm going to put I and Q. Okay, so our inequality notation. For this one, when you have a discrete graph, this is not applicable. You can't do interval notation if you do not have a continuing line. Okay, so now we're going to move into our set notation, which we can do. Okay, for domain, in a set notation with discrete, you just list and you start with your smallest x. So we're going to go -6, -4, -2, 0, 2, 4, and 6. Close that bracket. For range, you do the same thing, but you start with your smallest, which is -6, -5, -4, -3, -2, -1, and then 0. Okay, for my last type, we have the interval notation. I'm just going to do INT for interval. Again, for this, it's not continuous, so this is not applicable. Okay, I have just one more example, I'm sorry. And what we're going to do on this is I am going to give you a domain, and you have to convert what I give you to the 2 examples I want. I'm going to tell you domain is x is greater than 0. I want you to write this in set notation and in interval notation. Okay, to turn this into set notation, we know that domain, that's a bracket, domain is x, such as x. You always include that little C capital E, so the set includes all real numbers where, and then you just bring this down, x is greater than 0. And that's how you write that. For interval notation, if the numbers are getting bigger than 0, I know 0 is my limit. Since this is just a greater than, this is a parentheses, and then I put a comma to infinity with a parentheses. So parentheses 0, comma, infinity, parentheses. Now for range, my range is going to be all real numbers in inequality notation. Okay, I want you again to get it to set, and I want you to get it to interval. To turn all real numbers into set range, we do bracket y, such as y includes the set of all real numbers. Close the bracket because there's no limit on this one, like how there was with domain. For interval notation, since it's all real numbers, that means it's going forever. So we're going to open up a parentheses and do -infinity to infinity, and there you go. Okay, now on your homework, it's attached in your Google form. In your Google Classroom, and all you need to do are the odds: 1, 3, 5, 7, 9. If you have questions, please let me know.